We're gonna talk about relationships. All right. Like you said, it can get, what's the word you use? It can get a little bit saucy.
Yeah, for sure,
Yeah.
definitely.
So,
But we're used to that though.
uh,
People
um,
getting saucy. That's like
unfortunately,
the name of the game.
yeah, yeah. I try not to dip my fingers in this sauce that's going on around out here. But any respect,
Right.
well, let's do this correct. Let's get things started. Look, welcome everyone. This is Grow Givers Project podcast. My name's Juwan Buford here with my incredible partner in crime, Adrian Ponce. And you know what it is, right? This podcast is not for people pretending to be entrepreneurs or people out here um, speaking about entrepreneurship that aren't actually in the field doing the thing. We like to call ourselves not gurus, but durus. People are actively building businesses, providing insight, content, direction, for folks who are willing to make the transition or who are ready, more accurately, to make the transition into part-time or full-time entrepreneurship. So without further ado, I'm gonna pass it on to you. And look, I'm gonna let you get things started. You're gonna be a jump off right now in terms
Okay.
of why did you think this topic was so fascinating and interesting?
Well, I thought it was fascinating and interesting because when we went to the conference, I saw a lot of partnerships, teams, husband and wife teams that were doing great things within the organization and partnering and just leveling up their business. And I've always had the desire to have like a family member or significant other partner with me in business. I just have not been fortunate enough to be in that situation yet. And so it got me to thinking like, okay, so if you have a partner, I mean, I've had business partners, but like none of them like were family members or a
Mm-hmm.
significant other. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but it just got me to thinking like if you have that dynamic, um, how much more you could accomplish, because that acronym team together, everybody accomplishes more. And even like I said, within our organization, we have a husband and wife team that, you know, the husband was always supportive, but never was really like very proactive because they had other businesses. And then at the conference, he just hopped right in, and they're definitely, doing a lot of positive things and helping a lot of people. And I think it definitely would change the dynamic of your business and the trajectory of your business if you had a significant other or partner, spouse, whatnot, that was supportive of your business or you guys partnered in a business. I think, especially if your personalities were similar, and you had like a goal in mind, that you shared.
It's interesting, right? I didn't When you broached this topic, I wasn't quite sure how to prepare for to even think about it. Because my experience has shown me it can be a mixed bag, right? It could be a mixed bag.
I'm
Um,
sure.
yeah, and I couldn't help but to fall back on the framework that I've typically utilized when just evaluating partner with someone in business, period, right? And you've heard me use the acronym over and over again. Number one, do they get the mission? Do
Right.
they get the mission? Are they excited? Are they passionate about the values, the principles, the impact, how you want to make a difference in the world, right? Are they willing to be accountable? And I'm gonna really dig into that. But I mean, it can be difficult to build a business for a partner, much less a spouse or significant other, if they're not excited or passionate about the mission, right? Because they have their interests, they're human beings, separate and aside from you. And, you know, they may get amped by different things. And it's the worst if you have a partner. I wouldn't say it's antithetical to what you're doing because that's really bad. Right? It shouldn't be with that person. But if you just have a person that's completely and utterly disinterested, and then you try to bring them into your business, that's going to be tough, right? Because they're not going to want to be accountable. I mean, as entrepreneurs, we're wired differently. We prioritize money, our time, our resources differently than W-2s. We see the world differently, right? Um, Most of us, I mean, you'll see it time and time again. We're kind of like renegades. We're
Yeah.
black sheep. We're different. you know. And if you are a full-time entrepreneur, anyone listening to this that is considering full-time entrepreneurship, if you're already there, meaning this is how you pay your bills. You don't have a W-2 on the side. You're not utilizing your spouse income on the side. I mean, if you don't kill, you don't eat. Well, look, there's a lot of sacrifice. There are going to be nights where you don't go to sleep. There are vacations you're going to have to put off. There
Yeah.
are, your spouse or partner may want to go out to eat, and you're like, nah, I just got this phone call from a client. I got to get it in. Or maybe a threat pops up, or maybe you see an opportunity and you got to double down. And all of a sudden now you have to have that tough conversation. If you have a spouse or a life partner that is not ready for that accountability, right? They're not that committed to the mission. That's tough. That's tough. And then I think a lot about, because I've seen this, right? I've been working with business owners periodically, and I've noticed that the partner, the spouse, didn't have the skills to pay the bills. But because they were the spouse, the other person felt obligated to include them, or the spouse wanted to be involved. But it wasn't the right butt for the right seat. The business needed something different, and that partner wasn't bringing that to the table. I mean, I think about the relationships I've been in, right? I've been in short-term relationships. Obviously I was married for several years, right? And I can tell you some of the tensions that was problematic with some of the individuals whom I've been involved in dating in the past. A lot of the women I dealt with, once again, they didn't understand my willingness to put off short-term things to get what I wanted, right? Why don't you buy a new car? Why don't you invest in a house and basically become house poor, right? Why don't you invest in that watch or that chain or this, that, and the other? You got it. Doesn't matter whether or not I have it. I was thinking about I didn't just want to earn money in business. I wanted to crush the competition. I wanted to create a competitive moat where at some point the business is paying and creating revenues whether I'm involved or not. And oftentimes when you're doing, especially if you're doing a partner's to W-2, they don't get that. They just figure the business is earning money, we good. No, we're not good. If I'm still having to wake up every single day in order for that business to move and grow, then it's really not a business. It's a solopreneur endeavor, but we're calling it a business on paper, right? Also, I've dealt with situations where, the person just wasn't as passionate about the work that was being done. And of course, once again, if you're not passionate about it, you're not going to be accountable to the growth of the business. And I've had situations where person wanted to be involved in the business, but they didn't have the skills. I mean, they just weren't on the level. And, it's different when you're working with somebody, you turn off the Zoom, you go home, you ain't got to see them. Well, you got to come home to the life partner. and you got to have that tough conversation about, look, you're not on the level, right? I need you to operate differently in this business, right? I need to bring in a replacement. Man.
Yeah, that
Sleep
could have some very destructive event, impact on the synergy of the relationship, whether it was a domestic partner or, just whatever, a business partner where you just tell that person like, bro, like
that's a
it's
tough
curtains for you. Like you're not cut. I mean, and obviously we're entrepreneurs. You've been in business a long time, and so have I. And we've had those conversations, but I've never had it with someone I was involved with, married to, like a domestic partner. I've never had that situation. So I think, that would be very, very challenging and very difficult to navigate through. So there's that other side of the coin. See, I'm like romanticizing it, like making it sound like it's all amazing, but really the dynamic could be like a total train wreck and disaster.
Yeah. I mean, so I've talked about where it's gone bad, right?
Yes.
Oh, and here's another thing. What if your partner has a business too? So they're accustomed to being the number one in that business. They're accustomed to being number one in all their other interactions. And then you coming home and you got two number ones, two number one attitude, two CEO attitudes.
Right.
Right. That becomes a fascinating exchange too. Right. For me, when I think about how it's worked, and I'll use my current situation as a perfect example. Number one, we're both passionate about business development and entrepreneurship and growth. We just come at it from different directions, but
Okay.
we're both passionate about it. We are both, of course, me more to an extent, willing to sacrifice.
Okay.
Right. So she's willing to sacrifice going out and spending the money on red bottoms, or taking some or buying some purse or jewelry. Like, I'm fortunate in the sense that while she appreciates those things, she doesn't wake up thinking about those things. That's not a motivation, right?
Right.
So because of that, there's certain expenditures I'm not pressed to make. And I still make them sometimes, right? Just to, make sure I show my appreciation. But I'm not forced to, right? The other thing is, man, like I said, this values piece is so important. We both value financial independence more than we do money. And some people don't understand that, because you could be earning 250, 500, $1 million a year and not be free.
Absolutely.
Because if you have to wake up every single day to earn it, you got some boss cracking the whip. If you're in a situation where you're earning $500,000, but you're spending 600,000 to maintain your lifestyle, you're not free. And, I'm fortunate in a sense that we are content to have a certain standard of living, even if we can quote unquote afford to live higher than that and peacock. But our freedom is more important to us than the dollar amount. So if we're earning, combined together, let's say over 250, we're both cool earning 100K, knowing that we can stack money, invest money, stuff like that, right? Man, that balance, that's hard to find. And then the other thing, and once again, I can only speak from experience and then what I've observed from other entrepreneurs who've gotten it right. I operate more as a CEO. Number one, I have that mindset and I have that energy.
Right.
But number two, when I think of the way I operate in most of the circles I operate in, not all, because I'm also in environments people are achieving far above and beyond me. But in our ecosystem, I operate as a CEO. So I'm always thinking about ideals, vision, competitive advantage. I'm always watching the marketplace, always analyzing us, our competitors, et cetera, right? She doesn't think like that. I bring an ideal to the table. She either vetoes it or okays it based on our ability to execute. Whereas sometimes I'll come up with ideals, not thinking about the execution. It's just one of those situations where I bring something to the table and she grows it. So I bring it to the table, she multiplies it, she grows it. But to expect her to come up with ideas, to expect her to come up with new stratagems, to expect her to come up with new verticals is not in her nature to do so. She's an executor, an operator. And that's been a tremendous blessing in our business as well. So it's not enough to bring your spouse or significant other to the table. You all have to complement each other. You know what I mean? Yeah. Or it's just not going to work. I'm thinking of another business owner, Tremaine Lane, because I don't have their permission. But I know a lady that owns a lot of real estate here in Detroit metropolitan area, doing well for herself. And she is the face of the business, right? She's the one that's out there searching for new properties, searching for new clients, searching for new tenants. She's the one that ultimately is meeting with banks, financiers, et cetera, to manage and grow her real estate portfolio. You wouldn't even know her husband was there up until something happens. Some type of repair, some type of issue for tenant. Anything involving operations, he shows up magically and fixes everything, right? Keeps everything together. Um, Blocks the wrong people from getting access to her and what they're doing, right? He's almost like the guardrails, if you will, and literally a guardian of the business empire that they're building, right? And I noticed that the first time I met them. It's like I had an appointment with her, and instead of meeting with her, he greeted me first. And we're sitting up eyeballing each other, and I immediately said, "Oh, I get it. I know what your role is in this." I didn't even know that was her husband. I thought it was somebody she had hired to do it, and then I found out it was her husband. You know what I
Okay.
mean? So it can work, I think, if those kind of parameters and those type of mindsets come together.
Right.
But otherwise, man, I've seen the shit show too.
Oh, absolutely. I'm sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
If
Um,
the synergy isn't right, and like you said, your roles aren't complementary and everybody's on the same page with stuff. And even in the situations where I'm sure it's ideal and they're thriving, they probably had, bumps in the road and different things
mm,
that occurred where they had to kind of like learn each other, or, hey, we're not going to do this, we're going to do this instead, that sort of thing.
yeah. I mean, here's the other thing that people don't like to talk about. And I typically don't talk about this, but you said you wanted to be a little bit saucy. You know how that lands me a little bit messy, right? Entertaining, right? But I can tell you my past relationships, and I can say this with a straight face. I was married for several years. I did not step out one time. There's nobody on the planet Earth that can say I stepped out. Now, am I a man? Do I have eyes? Of course. Um, were there situations where, I mean, yeah, there were situations where people kind of laid it out for me like, hey, if you want it, I'm about that life. We can do this, right?
Right.
Um, Without speaking about the internal dynamics, I got some stuff still going on with this person, right? What I will say is if you are a man or woman and you are in a relationship with an entrepreneur, you must accept and expect that there's a certain degree of autonomy that person has to be an entrepreneur, right?
Yeah.
So you have to expect that your wife or your husband, they're in circles with driven people with resources, and offers are constantly being made. And if you're with someone who is insecure, right? Because I've dealt with that too in relationships where, in our ecosystem, especially in Detroit Metro, the majority of business owners I deal with, you know what it is. They're women, right?
Right.
They're
Yep.
women. At least up until maybe up until the last 3, 4, 5 years. But
Hmm.
even still, the majority of the business owners I meet at networking events, social events, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But I'm in the field is different because then I'm dealing with different types of business owners. Most of them are going to be men. But at these more social like settings, it's majority women. And look, the woman that doesn't respect boundaries is going to send a text message. The woman that doesn't respect boundaries is going to jump up in the DM publicly,
Right.
right? Or not even doesn't respect boundaries. Sometimes they don't know. Like I don't lead with the fact I'm in a relationship. I lead with this is what I do. It's my value practice, how I help people.
Right.
And if you're attractive in a certain type of way, folks who are out here thirsty, they'll come at you, right? Um, and I've been in situations where my partner in the past, um, was a business owner being very successful. Even in my younger years, I had that situation occur. And I had to be okay with the fact that I know people were making offers,
Of course.
right? And I had to be like, you know what? Let me not mess up the bag because my ego or I'm being insecure. Let's just put it that way, right? That is something that if you're going to be with an entrepreneur, like your spouse or significant other has to understand that dynamic. And you have to find ways to do whatever it is you have to do as an entrepreneur. Number one, to put your spouse or your partner at ease, or that partner has to do what they need to do, some work on their side to be at ease. Because
Right.
if you don't address that dynamic, that will mess with the bag too. Jealousy, envy. I don't want you talking to this person. I don't want you dealing with this person. I don't like how this person come at you, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Right. Um, for me, like I'm blessed and my partner understands that I'm not gonna mess up the bag. Like dipping out and getting mixed up in a wrong kind of way with other people, other women, would destroy the bag. And the bag and financial independence and being solvent is far more important to me than anything that's out here waiting for me in the streets. You know, um, but I'm very fortunate too that I have once again a partner that is entrepreneur in her own right, and so she understands what I'm going through. And so when we come home, we get together. We get it,
Right.
right?
Because
We
she's
get it,
getting it too. Yeah, because
right?
she's on the other, and I think women are more, like you get more of that too, where like you're having people you're trying to do business and they're like on some other stuff. And even people who a lot of times may, if you're not interested in their indecent proposal, like try to block you professionally or not want to do
Mm-hmm.
business with you because you're not going along with like their protocol or their standard operating procedure. Maybe this is just how they do business and you're not
Mm-hmm.
going along with it, so they're like, okay, well, I don't even want to do business with you. Um so women deal with a whole set of circumstances like that as well, and I
Yeah.
think you have to be able to um obviously not take it personal, and it's par for the course. Like this is
Yeah.
the business that we've chosen to be in. We've chosen to be entrepreneurs. Of course, we could be taxi drivers, work at the grocery store, whatever our interests were, if we wanted to do that sort of work. But this is not what we chose. We chose to be entrepreneurial. We want financial freedom. And so that goes with the territory. It's par for the course. And it's just something that you have to learn how to deal with and navigate through. And of course, try to be tactful and diplomatic. Utilizing diplomacy goes a long way, and respectful. Even if someone shoots their shot and you're not there with it, quickly pivot back to business and,
Mm-hmm.
leave it at that. And I think most people that are adults can read through the lines without you just coming right out and being blatant. But if not, then, there's always that conversation as well if it needs to be had. So,
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, what I would, if you are an entrepreneur or you and your spouse are entrepreneurs dealing with this issue, what I would communicate is you chose to be with that person.
right.
That person's attractive to you for a reason or reasons.
Yep.
Here's the thing: we're going to be attracted to other people for the same reasons, and the other people don't see your warts, right? They just see, oh, this person's crushing it. They win it. They're attractive. I like the way they talk, the way they walk, um, how they get down, how they impact the room or the space around them. They're productive. They're doing things. They don't see your warts. Your partner does, and you have to accept that. I mean, if you don't want to have to deal with that, then get an unattractive partner. I mean, seriously.
Even if you have a partner who is unattractive, one man or woman's
Uh,
trash is another man or woman's treasure. Like the
that's true.
beauty is in the
It's
eyes of the
true.
beholder.
That's true
You
too.
know what I mean? Like some people
Could be
might
looking like
feel,
Gargamel, the person still be.
yeah, like I mean, I think that at the end of the day, it's all about that person, what that person finds attractive. If they
Yeah.
feel, they might like a clean cut, whatnot, or who knows? Everybody has a different taste, so I mean, it's what
Right.
makes the world go round.
Right. Yeah. So that's a piece that I don't know. Like I'm speaking from experience. I'm also speaking from having walked in and out of 10 to 15 households or business owners' offices for 20 years. And that's what I've seen. Like I can hit the door and look at the couple and immediately assess what's going on. And that's a huge part of it. Because that's the other thing too. Like, at least I'm going to speak for myself. As an entrepreneur, I have to have some dichotomy and separation. Like, I have to have a buffer day, or what I would call, I don't know, I would call it a buffer day, maybe a focus day or something like that, where I literally have to be by myself. I have to be away from my children. I have to be away, obviously not all day, but you get the point. Got to have a period of time I'm away, like, to myself, so I can take inventory of what it is I'm doing, how I'm operating, how I'm moving, how I'm feeling emotionally, all that psychologically, what's going on. And the other thing that I've seen where you have women and men who are working together in businesses is they don't give each other the space. And there are times where, as an entrepreneur, if you don't have the space you need, it's almost like being hungry. You know how people get hangry?
Oh,
You're
absolutely. I'm one of
hungry,
them. Oh my
and
God.
you know, if you're
That's me.
hungry and you catch someone at the wrong time and they hungry,
Oh yeah,
you
that's
you
me for sure. That's
you
why I
get.
can never fast. I mean, it's like
Mhm.
I'm horrible actually.
Yeah.
Like we laugh about it because when I used to bartend, people who work for me be like, "You need to go get something to eat." Because my attitude is I call it short and you know what, like it's just it's very terrible, but yeah, I agree, you could just have like a very short fuse where you're just like, all right, not today.
Hmm.
Like, not
Yeah.
today. I even notice it myself. I'll be like, okay, let me turn my ringer off and let me get something to eat so I can be more professional because right now I'm like, yo,
Yes.
absolutely not. Yeah. Like what?
Yeah. Yeah. And that's just being real. Like,
Hmm.
I've seen that too. Like, can't smother each other.
Right. Yeah, you
They're
need to have space and you need to have, like you said, me time. Like,
Yeah.
even like for me, because I was talking with one of my girlfriends, and she's was in corporate and now she's totally doing the entrepreneur thing, and her husband is an entrepreneur too, and you know them. And I was telling her the importance of me time. Like if I feel like I need to do something for myself, I will do it. Like if I want to do a massage, pedicure, manicure, whatever it is, if I feel like I just need to like take a break from this because I'm always constantly working at such a high level, I do it because you have to treat yourself, don't cheat yourself. Like what's the
Mhm.
point of working hard and doing 16-hour days, 20-hour days? I mean, obviously it's for your own personal business endeavors, but you definitely have to take that time for yourself if you need it. And I definitely do. I love to just be like, all right, I'm gonna go do a pedicure, I'm gonna go do a manicure, I'm gonna go get something to eat. I'm gonna go hang out by the water for a little bit. I'm gonna spend time with my dogs. Whatever the case may be, you have to take that time for yourself. And like you said, just disconnect. And even if that means being away from your partner or like, hey, I just don't feel like, talking to anybody right now. I just need
Mhm.
to be to myself. I need to like, even with like, because I'm always on Audible, listening to books and stuff like that, doing that by myself too, because I find that to be very relaxing.
Mhm. Yeah, that's the other thing too. Like, it's funny you mentioned that because, yeah, like, I don't speak to myself personally. I'm on all the time, even in my sleep, and sometimes it's even annoying to me. Like, I've had to learn strategies to force myself to de-escalate, to shut that part of my brain down that is thinking about the KPIs, thinking about the revenues, who I need to speak with, what conversation needs to transpire, what tool or process I need. I mean, and much like yourself, if I'm not learning, that's a form of starvation too. I'll be just as irritable if I'm not learning as if I didn't eat all day long. Right. And like I said, if you are a person that is involved with an entrepreneur or you want to be in a relationship with another entrepreneur, and that's another piece of it too. Right. That is a landmine that has to be navigated. Like, if you don't understand, I don't know, man. Like, something I think about is I have a lot of relationships with entrepreneurs whose spouse It's supportive, but they're really not in it. They're not in the game. They're not in the business. And it has worked. It has worked. Because the person that is not in the game gives them the space to shut it down, right? They're done working. This is our time, whatever that may be. Vacation, having a conversation after work at night, blah, 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 et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And that person also, I mean, here's the thing too. When you're an entrepreneur, particularly you're a CEO in the business, there are conversations you can't have. Oh, this is huge. There are conversations you can't have with people you're working with sometimes. Sometimes you need time for an ideal to cook or a conflict. You have to think about how to effectively deal with that conflict. You got to strategize, right, about how you're going to approach a person. And you can't have that conversation with some of the people who are around you until you've worked your way through it, because then it could damage your business.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
So oftentimes what I have seen is that the other person's spouse becomes that sounding board, that person to actually listen to that stuff. And if that spouse or significant other is not ready for that, once again, man, that can be a problem. Because they're just, yeah, it's no averting that. Like, I've seen spouses get mad at that. They're always thinking about their business, always thinking about their business. I was like, you can't have your cake and eat it too. You decided to get married to an entrepreneur. You decided to be in a relationship with an entrepreneur. That is the animal you chose to be with. Now, you like the vacations, right? You like going out to eat, right? You like nice things, right? Well, this is how they do it.
Right.
And yeah, there are periods in your business where you're going to be maniacal. And the other partner has to be able to navigate that, right? Because I don't think you can be successful as an entrepreneur, not over an extended period of time, without having periods of mania in your business where it can be even a little bit chaotic. Are you down to deal with that? And I've seen it a lot of times. Some partners, mm-mm.
Right. Not able to deal with the ups and downs or just like you said, the chaos of being an entrepreneur or even a serial entrepreneur if you have more than one.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, because then you have like multiple things you're doing and it's always
Mm-hmm.
like, okay, there's a lot going on here. There's a lot to unpack here. So yeah. I think too, like it makes it more feasible. Like your situation, you're with an entrepreneur and
Mm-hmm.
and so I think when you have a partner who's an entrepreneur, it does make it easier because they understand, like if you're up at 2 o'clock in the morning working on your computer and they're not thinking like, oh, this person's like doing something weird. Like what's going on? Like, why are you on your computer at two
Oh my
o'clock?
gosh.
Whereas like
Yes.
a person who doesn't have that experience might feel like you're on some BS.com
Mm-hmm.
or you're, or like if you get a phone call, like something's going on, like one of your tenants call you and like, something weird happened and they're just calling you or leaving you a message, like somebody who's not in the entrepreneurial mindset might feel like you're on, BS.com because they don't understand that like when there's an emergency, people are just reaching out and they're like, they just need somebody to talk to or whatever the case may be. So I think that could definitely cause some challenges too.
Oh, that's another one too, right? So,
Yeah.
ooh, if you are married or involved with an entrepreneur and you are not involved in a business, or even sometimes if you are involved in the business, your significant other is going to have relationships and seek sometimes advice and consultation with people that they need to seek that advice and consultation with. Like, you can't be all things to them. You can't. Like, I tell the partner all the time, look, I'm not a psychologist. I'm here to listen to you. We can figure some things out. I'm glad you shared this with me so I can be empathetic and understand what you're going through and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But if you need to have a conversation with a therapist or a conversation with somebody that brings a certain skill set or wisdom that I don't have to the table, and you need to seek that out, I'm not going to blow up that relationship, right? Um, I've seen that too. I've seen that too. I've dealt with that where I've had attractive coaches, consultants, individuals that I needed to interact with to get something I needed at the time. And then the partner go online and take a look at them. And then the potential drama starts, right?
Because the
Um,
partner feels like that person is like what, not professional, or they just feel like insecure about the interaction?
I mean, once again, just from what I've observed, watching other entrepreneurs and having these conversations, and then I've experienced it myself. It's like the person doesn't have to be misbehaving. There could be no misbehavior, no malfeasance, whatever the case may be, right? But you have a relationship with somebody else that person isn't involved in.
Mhm.
They're not a part of it. And you are being edified by this person in such a way that the other person can't provide. And once again, that creates insecurity.
Okay, that
And
makes
insecurity will lead inevitably to drama. And
yeah,
so, yeah. So, I mean, that's something that happens too. Now, once again, um, if you're a mature entrepreneur, you have that conversation with your partner, whether they're involved in your business or not. And, I just believe in 100% transparency. I know that a lot of people don't believe in that, but I believe in 100% transparency. You're going to know why, what, who, all the time.
absolutely.
And if your partner was someone who is sane and reasonable, doing that cuts down a lot of that potential tension and conflict. But once again, and you just got to choose wisely because as you level up, as you grow, as your appetite, oh my goodness, here's another one. As you level up and grow, you start earning more. When you were at 30K, you go to 100K, your conversation changes. You're thinking about, worrying about, ideating about different things. When you go to 100 to 150 or 200, same thing. You're ideated. I mean, when you're at 30K, you ain't thinking about taxes the same way when you cross that 100K mark. You're not. You're not thinking about investing the same way. You're not.
Right.
Your appetite changes too. Your appetite changes. You start hungering and desiring for different things. And if you're with a partner who's along for the journey, and those appetites and those interests um, don't somehow level up together, that's a problem. Like I've seen it happen where entrepreneurs or business owners are growing, they're becoming more. They're becoming more aware of possibilities and more aware of different things they could be doing. And as they become more knowledgeable, they become more capable. And the partner they're with is accustomed to the 30 or 50 or 80K version of them. And because they weren't continually growing, they weren't continually developing, they weren't continuing to read the books, to go to the seminars, go to the workshops. Um, they weren't along for a certain type of exposure. Oh, that's like, man, that's tough. I've seen that happen on multiple occasions. Matter of fact, majority of the time when I've seen entrepreneurs like who are in relationships together and building business, when I've seen the relationship separate or the business fall apart, it ain't even because of infidelity and stuff like that. It's not, that's not what causes it. What causes it is the person has grown, their appetite has changed, and the partner is not willing or not able to come along for the ride. Right? Like
Yeah,
that.
I think I've seen that happen too, with people, like, relationships, and even, people that I know personally, where like,
Mhm.
yeah, like this one person is leveling up and then the other person just feels like, you know, some type of way about it. And
Mhm.
it causes, divide and conquer in the dynamic.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So I definitely, I think, but that's why communication is so important with whoever. Like if you're working with people, and your partner or whoever you're working with, whether it's professional relationships or personal relationships, communication is super important so that everybody understands, if there's something going on, or maybe some miscommunication, bad information, or, whatever the case may be, to avoid those pitfalls.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. A prenup helps too.
Oh, well, I mean, absolutely. It was,
Yeah.
especially if one person is, like really successful and the other person is still trying to figure it out, or not as successful. I think, yeah, absolutely.
Mhm.
Obviously you want to marry for love, but you have to be realistic too, so
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, that's interesting that you're going to introduce that, right? Because people make fun of the Clintons, for example, Bill and Hillary Clinton. They say that's more a relationship based on similar interests as
Okay.
opposed to love, right? Now, I, for one, I will always resist even the temptation to comment on other people's dynamics because you don't know what's going on behind closed doors.
Yeah, it's easy for
You
somebody
think,
to like, comment on the dynamic of somebody's relationship as an
yeah,
outsider looking in, but you're not in their bedroom at night when they're
mm,
having conversations.
yeah,
Like she's actually like super, super, super intelligent. Like I've
mm-hmm,
watched documentaries on her when she was in college, and
mm-hmm,
she was like valedictorian in her speech, and she was very much like before her time, and a trailblazer, and
mm-hmm,
super just very fascinating to learn about her.
yeah,
So for any woman who's trying to get into the entrepreneurial spirit of things and wants to learn about somebody who really made some power moves, yeah,
yeah,
yeah, she's very, very, very intelligent.
yeah. And I mean, look, there are relationships, and like I said, I'm loath to judge, but I mean, look, there are people who are in a. See, this is the other piece too. And once again, I'm just speaking from experience and what I have observed. Because oftentimes folks will make that comment where they're just together because it's convenient from a business or kind of career interest standpoint. And I'm like, look, you got to be real. Yeah, that plays a role. If you're an entrepreneur, that is part of the math you need to be doing. That goes into the math because those warm, lovey, dovey feelings and all of being enamored, that stuff comes and goes. There are gonna be times where you're looking at your significant other and you're like, man,
I feel like giving you un cocotazo.
look. Um,
Ah,
so if you're gonna be in a relationship with someone that is an entrepreneur, or two entrepreneurs gonna come together, look, you got to have that conversation too.
yeah,
Like, what does victory look like? What does winning look like?
right.
What does good look like? Um, maybe some people call it being equally yoked. I guess you would call it that. Um, but what does our partnership look like also on paper, right? Man, you got to have that conversation because if you're not on the same page there, I don't care how enamored you are with each other. Those moments come where you're not feeling enamored that day or that week or that month or that even that year, um, yes, your shared interests will keep you together. Your shared interests will keep you together. Like that math is important because that math will keep you together even during those rough and tumble times. Right?
Hmm.
like that's the other thing too. Like people are so use a word earlier. I think I'm gonna use a synonym. So I don't think you use that word. People romanticize entrepreneurship and marriage and relationships. They romanticize it, right? And like commitment is doing the thing you said you would do long after the young, warm, fuzzy feelings and excitement of the commitment was made, right?
Right.
And you don't know what that's going to look like in a relationship. You don't know what that's going to look like. Like I know people, I know entrepreneurs who are extremely successful and they're in the same house, but they're damn near living separate lives in the same house.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I've also seen relating because I've been in business for 20 years, so you see it going in, you see what it looks like coming out. And I've seen entrepreneurs who are together be going through that, and then a year or two later they come out of it stronger, better than ever, right? And if it was not for those shared business interests, they might not have made it. But they had those shared goals, those shared ambitions, the shared agenda, the shared itinerary. They both are in agreement with what good looks like. And that is what kept them together. And now they're just crushing it. They're winning. They're achieving more than they did previously. I've seen that happen too.
Mm-hmm.
That's a conversation that needs to happen. Yeah. Yeah. I remember I was listening to some podcast where I think it was Michelle. Yeah, it was Michelle Obama. Who was talking about how in her relationship with her husband, Barack Obama, President Obama, how there were years where it wasn't all good.
Yes, I've seen that interview too.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And
She was very candid, like
yeah,
just like
it
there
wasn't
wasn't
all good.
any like like fluffy, like trying
Mm,
to be diplomatic and she was just like giving it raw and uncut.
yeah.
Yeah.
And people start getting in their feelings and start, pants get tight, but that's real. And the same thing happens when you are business owners building a business together. That gets real. Um, so yeah, man, that's ooh. I mean, that in and of itself is a conversation on to itself. You could have an entire conversation about that, about what that conversation looks like with, yeah.
Absolutely.
So I don't want to dissuade you
No, it's
from
not.
incorporating a
It's
life
not.
partner
No,
or a
it's
spouse
like
into your business, but
it's not a
it's,
dissuasion. It's
yeah.
just like to me probably not gonna happen for me because I don't feel like the person I'm involved with would be um like interested, because I've broached it a million times and they're just like very like non like not really non-responsive, but like, oh yeah, that's cool, but not really
They're not excited about it.
no, not at all. Like remember
Mm-hmm.
we had did that interview with that one person we were talking and you were like, this person's energy is just like not doing it for me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, maybe they were good with like other stuff you did with them, but this, no.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not that bad, but it's like you can just tell that like they're just like kind of like whatever about it. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, so I don't think it would happen in this particular situation, but I think like if it could happen because we've seen it at the conference and in our
Yes.
own organization. I
Yeah.
think that if the energy is there, the synergy is there, and both people are committed to it, then it could be amazing. But that's
Yes.
when everything is like properly aligned,
Yep.
and everything is not for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
I firmly believe that. Like there's just some things that some people they're just, some people are the people who they just like you said, they're comfortable. They want to do the 9 to 5. They want to just check out when they come home at 5 and watch TV or drink a beer or whatever. And that's fine. But it's entrepreneurship is not for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Like you said, we make it look easy because we've been doing it for a long time, but there are those downsides. There are those times where you be like, oh my God, why me? Or like a deal or something goes sideways and you'll be like, okay, this sucks. Um, we all have experienced that, or just, a series of negative things, happening over and over again, where you're like, oh my God, like it's like a downward spiral of like negativity. How can I like get out of this tornado, so there's that side of it, that like, people are not seeing that part. They're just seeing like, oh, you're going on trips, you're doing this, you're doing that, like see you closing deals all the time. They're seeing like the romantic part of it. They're not seeing
Hmm.
behind the scenes, like, you know, get off of a flight at 7 o'clock, you slept on the plane, and then you just don't even go home. You're like, all right, I gotta go stop at all these houses. I gotta go do this. They're not looking at that part,
Hmm.
like where it's like, you didn't really sleep. You just got up, started working, and then you worked until like 1 o'clock and got back up and did it again. They're not
Hmm.
seeing that part of it. They're just seeing like this, the good stuff,
Yeah. And
So
then my favorite, I try to tell entrepreneurs this all the time, particularly the ones who are winning right now. I'm like, them $30,000 days feel good, don't they?
I'm sure.
Those 30,000 a month still good, don't they? But
Yeah.
you better prepare for that $1 month. Man, I literally just
Or
saw
several
it.
months of the
Yeah,
$1.
it,
Yeah.
it
Feed
happens
your family.
sometimes. Yeah,
Yeah.
sometimes. I mean, if you have systems in place, like I'm really excited this year
Hmm.
because my bottom this year was actually my top a couple years ago.
Okay.
So you want to get to that point, right? Right. But even still, and that's really a good way to measure your business so you're not too hard on yourself. Like so often we're like, I can always be doing more, I can always be doing more, I can be earning more, I can be earning more. You see other people earning more, doing more, buying stuff, da, 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 et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then you start, but a way to stay sane about your business so you can actually create a sense of gratitude and appreciation. Like, okay, so I didn't earn 1 million this year. I didn't run it up to $500,000. Oh, okay, fine. But knowing that my bottom, like the worst it can get, was my top a couple years ago. Oh, that's called victory. Entrepreneurs accept that. But okay, that being said, before I go off on that tangent, um, I mean, you hit the nail on the head. That one, I just saw a business owner get crushed for something that had nothing to do with their business model, had nothing to do with their business dealings, their product services. Is like a software situation changed. It set their business back a little while, and it was like famine for a moment.
Hmm.
And if you are a non-entrepreneur with an entrepreneur and that happens, and you're not in, if you don't understand that that can happen, that does happen, that's tough. Like I'll just be honest. I don't think I could ever be in a relationship again with a non-entrepreneur. I just I don't see it happening.
I uh,
Um,
I
I don't
agree. I
I
think
don't see
once
it
you've
happening.
had that dynamic in your relationship, like as you've had a relationship or a marriage with someone who is an entrepreneur, you can't really the dynamic would just be off, because the way that your dynamic is with that person understands like
Mhm.
way more, especially too, if that person comes from like their second, third, or fourth generation entrepreneur. Like,
Oh, that's yeah,
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 see,
yeah.
that's something too that we need to talk about, because
Yep.
if like you're with somebody and you have a situation where like, okay, because I would say I'm a second generation entrepreneur, because my grandfather had businesses. He was like a
Hmm.
presser. He had a pressing business when he was like raising my mom and my aunts and them. I guess it was probably like in the 60s. So he had a business, and then later on he had like a beer and wine store, and just some other things. But I think like for a person who's not coming from that type of a background, um it's like very hard to acclimate yourself to that. Like I used to see my grandfather like working like a savage. He had the beer and wine store when I was like in my early like teens up
Mhm.
until my early 20s. And so I could see, that work ethic. And I think that makes a difference too, because if your partner or your significant other is coming from that background of like second, third, fourth generation entrepreneurs, it's a way of thinking and the conversations that they have and the type of friendships that they have that's totally different
Yep.
than a first generation entrepreneur. Um, they're coming from, uncles, grandfathers, great grandfathers, coming, from that standpoint. It's just a totally different type of scenario and totally different type of mindset. So I think, yeah, if you're an entrepreneur and you've been an entrepreneur for any amount of time, I think, yeah, it would be difficult to have a relationship or a marriage with an entrepreneur and then go into another partnership with someone who is not coming from that background, because you're not going to share the same mindset, and it's going to be very difficult for that person um to
They don't have it in their
acclimate.
DNA at all.
Yeah.
It's like you are totally two different animals.
Oh,
And
absolutely.
it's like it's an app comparison, like
An alley cat to a lion.
basically.
Yeah.
And it just it's what it is. Not, you don't want to call a personality
Well,
catch,
no, but you had
but
made that
it is, yeah, but yeah,
comparison one time. You realize you have the appetite of an alley cat or of a lion,
yeah,
and it's not offensive. It gives you something to
yeah,
food for thought. It gives you
yeah,
something to think about. Like, okay, what is your appetite? Is your appetite that of just a regular domesticated cat? We'll call it just a domesticated cat, not an
yeah,
alley.
yeah.
Or is it that
Ooh,
of,
that is such a good
yeah,
metaphor. Yeah.
yeah, I
I
think it's excellent, because when you said it, I thought about it and thought about it and thought about it, and I'm still
see
thinking about it.
see now I'm thinking about a relationship I was in, and I will never forget this argument. And you just hit the nail on the head.
Hmm.
Think about two situations I was in. I remember an argument where the person looked me in the face and said, I want your entrepreneur endeavors to be you wake up at 8, 9, you're home by 4 or 5. And I was like, you want a plant work?
The kiss
That's
of
what you want.
death.
Yeah,
That's
it was
the
over with. It
Yeah,
was over
like
with.
you already
I
knew it
was,
wasn't
I
gonna
was,
work,
yeah.
especially after that comment. It's like, okay, this, like, you probably just
Mm-mm.
sat there and didn't even respond to it because you're
I
like, okay,
didn't.
it's not even gonna work. I
I
can't even
didn't.
respond to this. Yeah.
I didn't.
Yeah,
And
because like what is the response? The response is like, okay, like, are you out of your mind? Like, do you understand what being an entrepreneur is?
yeah, I remember that relationship was done
Oh
at
yeah.
that point. And then here's something else to think about, right? So I had a conversation with another partner, and he was complaining because he had been in business for 2 years and wasn't how he was comparing himself to another entrepreneur we know in common. And he's like, I'm smarter than him, I work harder than him, and blah, 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 blah. Why don't I have his success 2 years that this other person who's been in business for over 10, 15 years had? And I
Were
looked
they
at
in the
him,
same industry?
yeah. And I
Okay.
looked at him and I said, you need to understand something. You are a 2 year old. Now, you may be 30, but your real age in entrepreneurship years is 2 years.
Correct.
That person is, 15 years at that point is entrepreneur, you're a grown adult. Yeah, I
Hmm.
mean, you're damn near middle aged. So you don't even you don't even have the stomach to eat steak yet, and you're comparing yourself to a grown adult in business, right? And what you just shared is so apt. Like, if you come from a family that is entrepreneurs in your DNA, right? You were bred for it, whether you realize it or not. Um, man,
There's different
I don't it
mindsets too. There's different.
I don't think it can happen. I really
Yeah.
don't believe you can get into a relationship with someone At least I have not seen it. I'll say that much. I have not seen it. Because the person that is a non-entrepreneur, man, just in a way you show up places, how you conduct yourself, like the conversations you have, man, how you position yourself in a room, whether it's a social gathering, whether you were invited to some type of campaign party, if you go to the Mackinac agency policy thing that takes place every single year. I mean, your partner has to know how to move in those circles, right? One
To be
thing I,
comfortable too. How to
yeah,
be comfortable.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's funny because, my partner and I will show up somewhere, and at the end of the night, she would have collected intel on everybody, stuff I didn't even notice, because I'm having the conversations, I'm engaging, and then this person this
She's
person that.
more detail orientated.
Well, it's not detail oriented. She knows her role,
Mm-hmm.
right? She knows what the business needs of her,
Mm-hmm.
right? So while I'm doing one thing, she's doing another.
Right.
You know what I mean? I'm just as detail oriented, but I'm focused on different things. And she knows I'm focused on the things. So she focuses on the other things, right? It's totally different conversations. This person is this relationship dynamic. This person, this is their goal. Like someone who, man, you're a two-generation entrepreneurship. And you trying to incorporate someone that's never had to think like that and understand that dynamic. Ooh,
And you know, it's so
I don't
funny.
see it.
He was like in his like 70s doing that. Like he was like older, you know what
Mm-hmm.
I mean? So that's like just goes to show you that
Mm-hmm.
and then even stuff that probably I don't even know you know, before, because I mean my mother and my aunt and them were talking about when he used to be he had, you know, the dry cleaning business and how they hated going there because he would, you know, want them to help. And
Mm-hmm.
um like my aunt, one of my aunts, she liked it because she was good at counting money and she always liked to count the money. But my mother didn't like it. She's like, I hated going there, you know, because he would be like on them. Like, you know, you guys need to like be like smiling, you know, greeting the customers, you know, like
Yep.
teaching them
Yep.
at a young age, you know, what they needed to do. But they, you know, my aunt thrived in the environment, but my mother was like, I just
Mm-hmm.
hated it. So yeah,
Yeah.
mm,
Mm-hmm.
that's funny now that I'm thinking about it.
Man, this conversation can cause a lot of trouble.
It could, but these are things
But it's
that
helpful though.
it's relevant. People need to
Yeah.
know these things. I mean, because like if you're like just like when you had the kiss of death moment with your partner when they were like, well, you need to be waking up at 8 and be home by 4, and you're like, okay, like this conversation's over. I don't even have a response to this. I
Mm.
just forgot I got an appointment. Like I'm
That's
and
exactly what transpired too.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Like I'm not even going to engage in this. I had a conversation. I was engaged one time. I've been engaged several times.
Oh
Um,
my
yeah,
goodness.
and married. Okay, but this was the engagement, and okay, the person, like my family, especially my aunt, like loved him. Okay, and I was kind of like, okay, I'm like this age. I need to be like, you know, doing blah blah blah. Okay, he was nice, you know, but just okay. So he said to me, because I was trying to teach him like my business, he was like, um, oh, I'm over here doing this and this and this for you, and I could be making overtime. And in that moment, I said, you know what? I'm not fucking doing this. I was like, you know what? You are so right. So I tell you what, you go ahead and I'll just handle everything here, okay? And you go ahead and you go make your overtime. And at that point, I
Yeah.
was like, I just there's no other conversation. Like, if you would rather work at the plant, which is short for you know what, then go have at it. Like that's not my lifestyle. That's not gonna work for me. And obviously we're just not on the same page. And it was just in that conversation when he made that comment, like, well, I could be, you know, doing this and this, but I'm over here helping you. Yep, you're absolutely right. And I'm gonna continue to and I think he made the comment too, my little construction business. So that
Oh,
yeah, so that
see,
was like
this type of stuff I'm talking about.
it was
Mm-hmm.
like the kiss of death, and then you just like, you know, like just dug the knife in deeper. And I'm like, okay, you're right. You are so right. And that was that. And it was that conversation where I was like, I just knew that in that moment, this was not the right path. And I'll tell you this, my aunt was very disappointed in me. She was like, "Why would you do that? That was the perfect blah blah blah." I'm like, "For who? For you?"
Oh man,
Like,
you know,
because
so funny.
she had a similar
Yeah,
situation. She was married to somebody who that was their lifestyle. They worked at the plant and during that era, okay, because she was in the 70s, that was her era. Um, and that, that was success at that time. Like,
yep,
people from the people of color community, most of them that were successful and had, whatever. She was a social worker and her husband worked at the plant. And that, they had a lot. But that's not my lifestyle and that's not what I want for myself at all. So yeah, so that was interesting and one to grow on.
yeah,
So but we're still friends though.
yeah.
Yep, he actually sends me referrals.
That is so
'Cause
entertaining.
he knows I can get the bag. That's the thing.
Yeah,
Yep, I got a couple transactions going right now because of him. So, yeah. You got to treat people with tact and diplomacy all the time. So, yep.
I love it. As the world turns. My goodness, you said a lot just then,
Oh,
but
absolutely. Yeah.
we running up against it as usual.
Right.
There's definitely got to be a part two,
Oh, for sure.
and we gotta we have to invite some people in our network
Oh, I
who
agree.
are
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
for sure.
I think it'd be a much more fruitful and interesting and layered conversation. Yeah,
Yeah.
but all right, I'm gonna go ahead and wrap things up here. All right, there we go.